Imagine sending out 1,000 ants to attack a black widow spider. Who would win this huge battle? Would the spider's poison win the fight, or would the ants' sheer numbers be enough to beat her? We're going to look at just that kind of situation today, putting ants to the test against black widows and other interesting creatures to see how strong these tiny creatures really are. But there's a catch. I don't really leave 1,000 ants around. The good news is that I found a website that sells live colonies. Even better, it was a secret species pack, which meant I wouldn't know what kind of ants I was getting until they got there. Some species, like army ants and fire ants, are known for being aggressive and working together, while others aren't as scary. This surprise part made the plot more interesting. After paying $300 and choosing the most expensive shipping method, because I didn't want any accidents during transport, I couldn't wait for my package to arrive. When the box finally got here, I quickly took it to where I was recording and carefully opened it. I wasn't sure at first if they were in there or not. Then, boom, I saw that I wasn't being scammed. Inside a pill bottle were what looked like an army of almost 1,000 ants in full flight. So I could get a better look, I put them in a clear container. What I saw shocked me. When you see 1,000 ants moving together, you can really understand how big that number is. In this case, if each ant weighs about 3 milligrams, the colony as a whole weighs about 3 grams, which is about the same as a paperclip. A very small group, but a very scary number of people. It would be hard to count thousands of ants one by one, so I named the species instead. I saw that these were harvester ants when I looked more closely. They were great for this experiment. Harvester ants are not like sugar ants. They have strong jaws that can crush seeds and other insects, as well as poisonous stingers that can really hurt. Some species of harvester ants are among the most poisonous bugs in North America. Their stings are so terrible that they are worse than those of wasps and bees. This meant that the fights that were coming up would be very exciting. But my new army of 10,000 ants had to find a good place to live before they could fight a black widow. That's where the Terra jar came in. You can think of it as a terrarium, but in a small glass jar that is made for ants to crawl through. Because the walls were clear, you and I could see their underground kingdom grow as it happened. I carefully let the ants go to their new home. The Terra jar must have felt like freedom after being squished inside a tiny pill bottle while being shipped. At first, there was chaos. Ants were running around everywhere, and many of them were climbing the glass to get away. In just a few hours, though, their feelings took over, and they started the huge job of digging. It was amazing to watch them work. One worker would go down into the tunnels that were being made, pick up a grain of soil, bring it back to the top, and drop it in a mound that was growing. They would then do this again and again. Now, picture this process being done by thousands of people at the same time. If each ant can take 10 to 50 milligrams of soil each trip, depending on size, and they all make 50 trips an hour, that's 400 grams of soil moved every hour. Almost half a pound of earth moved by tiny bugs. You could already see the start of a very complicated underground network taking shape by the end of the first day. This was just the start. The colony's caves would get more complicated over time, making them look like a small city hidden below the ground. Within the first hour of time-lapse video, the ants had dug up a huge amount of dirt, making what looked like the start of a thriving underground castle. It felt like I was seeing a real building crew working around the clock when I watched them do their job. They thought that their nest would look like a full-on labyrinth by the end of this project. Of course, the caves were not the only thing that happened. Before putting these ants up against the hardest thing in the world, the black widow spider, I chose to test their hunting skills and teamwork with a set of training activities. I was interested in seeing how fast this group could kill prey in the second test. That's why I brought a cricket into the field. The cricket is known for having strong legs for jumping and very quick reactions, so I thought it would at least try to fight back. I was wrong, that much is clear. As soon as the cricket hit the ground, the ants sprang into motion. Dozens of workers swarmed over the bug like a well-coordinated army in less than a second. I thought it would take a few minutes to take down the cricket, but it was immobile in seconds, with its legs pinned down, its jaws biting, and its stingers releasing poison. The interesting part is that a single harvester ant sting might not kill bigger animals or people, but many of them together are very dangerous. 20 ants stinging at the same time, each injecting about 0.1 milligrams of venom. That's 2 milligrams of venom altogether in less than a minute. For a cricket that only weighs 300 to 500 grains, that dose is too much, like getting bitten by several poisonous snakes at the same time. In the next 30 minutes, the crickets stopped fighting for good. The ants took apart their meal piece by piece because they had to protect their nest and feed their colony. What amazed me most was how well they worked together. Some ants held the cricket down, while others cut it up and took the parts away. Collective predation was shown in a cruel but effective way. One thing was very clear. Ants don't mess around when it comes to working together and being strong Also, if they can kill a cricket so quickly, I wonder if they could handle a black widow spider, which is one of the world's most dangerous spiders. By the end of the cricket test, the poor bug was surrounded and couldn't move. The ants didn't waste any time. They probably tore off the bird's antennae and other soft parts first to make it easy for the colony to share the food. It was very harsh, but also very interesting to see how well nature worked. As night fell, I put a bucket over the terra jar to make it look like it was dark, which is what ants like to do when they are underground. Most ants work at night, so I was interested to see how far they could get while I slept. Sure enough, the change was amazing when I checked back in the morning after about 10 hours. Their tunnels were much more complicated now that they went deeper into the jar and had whole paths that went all the way to the bottom. Ants could be seen moving all the time along their new network, which looked a lot like a busy train system. It was the best way for them to get ready for their next task. It was now 8 a.m., which meant it was time for training challenge number 3. The antlion is a type of specialty predator that was made to test individual ants. Antlions are small insects that have been around for more than 150 million years and have evolved to hunt ants exactly. Their clever way of hunting is to make funnel-shaped holes in loose sand. When an ant falls inside without being noticed, the antlion throws sand up at it to keep it falling down until it's close enough for its huge jaws to grab it. The ant almost always dies in the trap. For the test, I carefully picked out one poor worker ant from the colony and put it next to the area where people were waiting. There was more than one antlion in the tank, and they were all busy building their own sandy traps. From above, the surface looked like a battlefield with holes all over it. Any ant that got too close could die in any of them. They had to wait for a few hours before the pits were properly formed and the antlions were ready. This was nature versus nature, a specialized predator whose only job is to hunt ants versus my huge colony of harvester fighters. The antlions had all made their own perfect pit traps by now. From above, these craters looked like they weren't dangerous, but for any ant that got too close, they were death traps, designed over millions of years of evolution to send prey straight into the mouths of predators. I gave my test subject a little mission to make things more interesting. I put one ant at the beginning of the arena and dropped some breadcrumbs at the far end. If it could make it through the challenge, it would have a tasty treat to bring back to the colony. As soon as I let go of the ant, it started to explore the sandy ground. It walked dangerously close to several pits because it had no idea what was below it. After that, it happened. The ant slid toward the bottom after stepping into one of the holes. Most of the time, this would mean quick death. The walls are built to be steep and crumbling so that the ant can't get out. The attacker waits at the base. The antlion, on the other hand, looked like it was asleep, or at least taking its time as it moved. There was no action. The worker ant climbed back up the hill and got away without getting hurt. However, the noise woke up the antlion. You could see it move in the sand, its jaws open wide, getting ready for the next try. After that, it was a tough fight of timing and patience. The ant kept falling back into the pit every few minutes. The antlion was ready this time. Then all of a sudden, it threw sand grains up like tiny projectiles, making the ant lose its balance and pull closer to its dangerous jaws. There were several close calls, but the ant amazingly got away at the last second. But then the truth came out. The antlion finally hit the ant as it fell back into the pit. Its sickle-shaped teeth snapped around the ant very quickly and dragged it below the water in an instant. It was over. That's one ant gone, taken by a creature that was designed to hunt them. This trial was a sobering warning that ants are much more likely to be hurt when they are alone than when they are in groups. When you're up against an antlion, luck is more important than strength. If we play the video again, you can see what happens when an antlion gets a good hold of something. The dangerous animal pulled the ant down and buried it in the sand. In an instant, it seemed like nothing had ever been there. The pit flattened out and went silent, hiding the fight below. I thought it was over. As the ant was pulled deeper and deeper into the ground, you could see the sand grains moving. After that, though, something unbelievable happened. A very small part of the ant's head stuck out of the sand. It was fighting back against all odds. This shocked me. Studies show that up to 90% of ants that fall into their traps never get out. This means that antlions usually catch a lot of ants. But harvester ants are known for being tough. The worker likely used its poisonous stinger in its teeth to claw its way up. I quickly switched cameras to catch the moment on film. The ant didn't run away, which I thought was strange, but instead it dug its front legs back into the sand like a dog trying to hide a bone. I couldn't believe it for a second. This ant was going back underground on its own, right where its killer was waiting, after almost being eaten alive. I pushed it then. I put it next to another antlion pit. The hiding hunter woke up almost right away and threw sand at the ant, then snapped its sickle-shaped jaws around it. The ant was pulled below the water's surface again, and again, against all odds, it won the fight. It jumped out of the sand, ran right past the danger, and headed straight for the breadcrumbs at the other end of the field. Not believable. This ant not only got away from one of nature's best hunters, but it also tricked me into putting it closer to its prey. It didn't make sense, but this little warrior had won the battle. I had to admit it at this point, these ants were weird. That worker not only made it through 2 antlion pits, but he also went straight for the bread and brought it back to the colony. It had won the battle against all odds. Thanks. When I put the survivor and the bread back in the nest, they reacted right away. There was a lot going on in the colony as workers swarmed the bits, breaking them up into smaller pieces and carrying them underground. It was a mad rush to eat. The training wasn't over yet, though. A maze of Venus flytraps was their next test, which was very different. I carefully picked out a group of worker ants and took them into what I called the flytrap minefield. This was a small area filled with many Dionaea muscipula, which are classic carnivorous plants known for their snap trap leaves. I had a simple plan. I would put food inside the arena and see if the ants could get it without becoming prey. The prize for this round was a bowl of oats. Don't worry about the fact that they came in boxes with a monkey on the front. Don't ask. I don't know either. It's interesting to learn about Venus flytrap's enemies. There are sensitive trigger hairs inside the lips of each trap. If the trap is touched twice in about 20 seconds, it snaps shut in less than 0.3 seconds, trapping whatever bug is inside. Ants, flies, and small bugs are all things they usually eat. Once the plant has caught its food, it releases digestive enzymes that break it down over 5 to 12 days. When the plant opens again, it only leaves the exoskeleton behind. That's why the oats were carefully dropped into the traps. This would make the ants go inside and take the food back out. This should test their accuracy and ability to work together, right? But in real life, not so simple. It was almost impossible to place the oats correctly without touching the hairs by accident. With just one brush, the trap would close on empty air. I spread the oats out over the tank instead. If an ant made a mistake, the traps would be ready to attack. This way the ants still had to find their way through the minefield of breaking traps to get food. Now, the question is whether the ants could beat not only animals that eat them, but also plants that have developed to eat them. It's time to see how the ants do in the Venus flytrap field. To be honest, I didn't think they would do too well. These plants are actually made to eat animals that size. As soon as I opened the tubes, the workers came out in a steady stream to check out their strange new surroundings. For the first few minutes, they looked lost as they searched the area by touching the ground and using their sensors to test the new leaves. Then there was the first real meeting. There was an ant that went right up to a Venus flytrap. It most likely thought this was just another leaf. It couldn't have known that this leaf was living and ready to kill, of course. Since the ant didn't touch the trigger hairs as it walked across the plant's surface, the trap stayed open. Good luck getting away. Lucky days don't last forever, though. A short time later, another worker went up to a different plant. This time, things didn't go so well. Very quickly, the trap closed and trapped the ant inside. Venus flytraps are one of the fastest plants to move. Once the trigger hairs are touched twice quickly, the plant closes in about 100 to 300 milliseconds. For the little ant, it must have felt like the ground came to life and ate it up. The most interesting thing to me was that the ants weren't actually interested in the oats I had spread out. This time, many of them seemed more interested in the plants. Venus flytraps make a tiny layer of nectar around the edge of their traps, which is why they look that way. This sweet coating attracts bugs that aren't paying attention until they make the deadly mistake of stepping inside. The plants were just as interested in the ants as they were in the oats, but the ants didn't know it yet. In the end, what was bound to happen did. One worker ant got too close to a Venus flytrap's teeth and rubbed against a trigger hair. The leaf snapped shut in less than a second. That was it. The ant was locked up. It ran around and around inside the trap, frantically trying to get out, but there was no way out. The plant would slowly release digestive enzymes and acids over the next few days. These would break down the ant's soft tissues and turn them into liquid nutrients. This was dinner for the Venus flytrap. The ant could only go one way. It was interesting to see that most of the ants in the area could feel that something was wrong. They didn't just spread out, they grouped in a corner and started digging tunnels as if they were trying to build part of their nest again. This probably saved a lot of them because for the next 20 minutes, not a single ant was brave enough to go near another trap. This worker, whose name I'll call Larry, was either very brave or very stupid. Larry bravely walked across several Venus flytrap mouths, not seeming to know what was happening. Each step was like taking nature's Russian roulette. Afterwards, pop! He was finally caught in a trap. Larry's body was still stuck out of the leaf, which was a strange stroke of luck. This part capture gave him a chance to win. While the earlier ant was totally trapped, Larry might be able to get away before the plant closes up enough to start digesting. In the next few seconds, Larry would either become plant food or an icon. Larry pushed against the Venus flytrap's jaws with all the strength he had, but the plant is cruelly designed. When it is activated, the lobes don't just close. They get tighter over time, making a wall that keeps air out so the prey can't get away. In the wild, Larry was doomed, but I had to say it. I couldn't let him leave like that. So I went against nature's rules and carefully pried the trap open with a pair of pliers. Lawrence was freed against all chances. I took him back to his colony slowly, hurt but still living. It turned out that the Venus flytrap training went fairly well in the end. Only one ant was lost out of the whole group. I dropped a new stack of oats, yes, the gorilla oats again, into their nest as a treat for all their hard work. Within minutes, workers rushed in, breaking up the food into tiny pieces and carrying them down into their tube system, which is always growing. And since we're talking about tunnels, it was time for the last training session before the big fight with the black widow spider, a flood scenario. In the wild, flooding is a real danger for ant colonies that live on the ground. In fact, some species, like fire ants, can escape huge floods by gluing their bodies together to make rafts that float on the water for weeks until they find dry land. Farmer ants in my yard don't build rafts, but they do need to know how to fix and strengthen their tunnels when water gets close to their home. Of course, I wasn't going to let loose a full-on rain in the Terra jar because that would destroy the whole colony right away. I used a tool called the Little Dripper instead. It slowly let water droplets into the environment to make it look like it was raining. At first, the ants had no idea what was going on. Droplets of water fell into the carefully dug holes, wetting the ground and causing small cracks to form. Some workers ran away in fear, while others went in right away to find out what was going on. The big question was whether they would give up and leave the tunnels in fear, or whether they would face the task and fix the damage like a real colony under attack. As more and more water dropped, some ants were fully wet. Surprisingly, more and more workers crowded around the drip spot instead of staying away from the water. They didn't look like they were worried about getting wet. Instead, they worked together to protect the pipes below. This was very interesting. If there's a real flood in the wild, ant colonies have an amazing way to stay alive. They connect their bodies to make living boats. The queen, the brood, and the eggs, which are the most important parts of the colony, stay safe and dry on top, while worker ants give their lives to serve as the flying base. Fire ant rafts have been known to drift for weeks at a time until they hit dry land. In a very small way, that's exactly what was going on in my Terra jar. By standing close together, the ants made a wall of bodies that absorbed the water and kept it from getting into their nests, where the eggs were kept. It was the best kind of teamwork. I really thought that the water pressure would cause their tunnels to fail. However, they once again showed me that ants are much more flexible than I thought. They did great in every test I gave them. They killed a cricket in seconds, fought off antlions, and made it through Venus flytraps. Now they're standing their ground in a fake flood. In the meantime, they kept adding to their nest, turning it into a busy underground city. It was clear at this point that the ants were ready for the very best task. This is the black widow spider. This wasn't just any black widow. It was the last one I had. The others from earlier tests had all either gotten away or died. And, well, let's just say that my mom doesn't need to know that I got away. Things were ready to go. One of the most feared spiders in the world went up against 1,000 poisonous harvesting ants. Would the black widow show why it has a bad reputation, or would the sheer number of them beat the poison? Now it was time for the black widow, who we had all been waiting for. I put her in a small pot first so you could get a better look. At first I showed my pet robot Black Widow by mistake. Don't worry, that one only shoots plastic webs. But then I told them the truth. Also, she was really scary. She looked like something out of a nightmare with her shiny jet black body and the famous red hourglass shape glowing under her stomach. Black widow spiders are not only creepy, but they are also dangerous hunters. They have one of the strongest spider venoms with a neurotoxin called latrotoxin in it. Prey much bigger than an ant can be paralyzed or killed by a single bite. It is thought that their poison is 15 times stronger than a rattlesnake's, drop for drop. Luckily for people, they only bite when they feel threatened, and thanks to modern science, very few of them die. But what about an ant? One bite ends the game right away. After setting the stage, I got the arena ready. It was a tank with sand inside and some sticks from my garden for the spider to sit on. After carefully putting the black widow inside, she jumped up on the sticks right away to check out her new home and start making her first silk threads. She got used to her spot after a while. It was time to let the competitors go. I went to the ant nest and put a group of eager worker ants into a tube. That was it. The last test. The ants came out of the tube into the tank one by one all over the sand. At first they were spread out and looked around the field. Some began to move toward the sticks, where the black widow was waiting in silence. I will say that waiting isn't one of my strong suits. It was awful to watch the stalemate, so I chose to move things along faster. With care, I picked up the stick and dropped the Black Widow right into the path of the ants. Right away, confusion broke out. The spider ran quickly across the sand, its legs moving like lightning. One brave worker ant grabbed her leg and shocked her, but most of the ants didn't see. She tried to get away by climbing up the smooth glass walls, but it was too hard for her. She was stuck. The fight had started. When a few more ants saw the Black Widow moving quickly across the ground, they rushed in and began attacking right away. To be honest, it was pretty funny to watch because there weren't many ants at first. The most poisonous spider in the world was running like crazy to get away from a few small enemies. This really is a Black Widow. A bug could not move after just one bite from her, but she was running for her life instead of fighting back. The ants kept bothering her, darting in to nip at her legs and making her run away. They were as bold as ever. But here's the thing, most of the group wasn't even taking part. There were still hundreds of ants moving around on the other side of the fence, not paying any attention to the chaos. I knew I needed to spice things up at this point. So I set the stage again. After carefully getting rid of the Black Widow and the few ants that were with it, I went back to the main nest. After all, the title said there would be 1,000 ants versus a Black Widow. That's exactly what I was going to give them. I grabbed an entire army, or about 1,000 workers, and let them go into the arena with the spider. As a result, complete chaos. As soon as the Black Widow's feet hit the sand, she ran like crazy, twisting her legs as she tried to get away. But there was no way out this time. The ants saw the invader right away and went into full red alert mode. The swarm quickly covered her. Dozens of mandibles clamped down on her legs, and some kept jabbing her with their stingers. On its own, ant poison might not be as dangerous as spider venom, but when hundreds of people work together to attack, the damage is terrible. The wife never even got the chance to fight back. She was pulled down and unable to move because there were so many of them. Her shiny black body disappeared under a living tide of ants. It was over in an instant. Once more, the colony showed why ants are some of the most powerful animals in the world. They are strong enough to beat almost anything, including mosquitoes, antlions, Venus flytraps, floods, and now one of the world's most poisonous spiders. As an example, scientists say there are more than 20 quadrillion ants living right now. That's more than 2.5 million ants for every person on Earth. With that in mind, it's easy to see why ants rule the animal world from the background. How did it go? If there are 1,000 ants and a Black Widow, the ants win. Every single time. I have a very important word for all the kids, families, and parents watching before we end. We just put out the brand new Terra activity book, and we really spent a lot of time making it as fun and useful as it could be. This isn't any old activity book. You can color every page and go on a trip through 5 different biomes. You'll find cool facts about animals' creative tasks, and even places to draw your own animals along the way. You can make the right home for a mud skipper here. Or this is where you can make your own axolotl. You can learn, be creative, and have fun with it. It means a lot that you watched this video and liked the channel. Before we leave, I know some of you like seeing my dog, so here he is, who is a good boy.